All right. So we just wrapped up another great interview. Tanya, you were asking some awesome questions. It was exciting because we got to talk about personal finances and investing through a checkers and chess analogy, which kind of made me stop and think for a second. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I love analogies. I talk a lot about like health and finance, like how our
Mhm.
health habits are related to. So is it just different approach to how you can look at building wealth and how playing checkers is normally like simpler, easier, right? Or
Yeah.
that's what we think. And then chess is like the next level. So I liked how he explained that and really like dove deep on that topic.
Yeah, absolutely. This was a fun conversation. I think there were some great questions. We got some great responses. Freddie Rappina was our guest today, and it was just overall just really fun and good to learn about how he does things. So he's a financial advisor, right? So we got to speak a little bit about his different strategies and what he does with his clients, and it was very interesting to learn just the different methods that he had in place and how to leverage
Yeah.
debt. I don't know. For
Yeah,
me,
yeah. I mean, he has a different approach to most
yeah.
financial advisors, you know?
Yeah, that exactly. So he does look at it differently, which for me was fun because I like to leverage debt, and we got to talk about that a little bit. But then he also talked about like just making sure you don't take too much risk with that.
Yeah, exactly. Like figuring out your tolerance. But I also like he was a police officer for
Right.
however long. Comes from a very solid blue collar background that I think really comes across as with his demeanor in
Hmm.
the interview. And I asked questions about that, like about how that correlates to him now being an advisor and how that helped him. So I thought that was kind of cool background. We didn't grow up learning about finance, and now he's built this amazing portfolio and building wealth for him and his family.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. So it was great to see, like, I guess hear it from the horse's mouth, right, of making that transition from checkers to chess. But we're not gonna talk about that too much. You guys have to go listen to this episode and check it out and see how we got into that conversation. But this was a really good episode. You guys are gonna really enjoy it.
Yeah, check it out now.
Let's go.
This is Dana Samuelson with the American Gold Exchange. You're listening to the Average Joe Finances Podcast with Mike Cavagioni.
If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you smash the like and subscribe buttons. If you're listening to our podcast, go leave us a 5-star review. All of our links can be found in the video description or show notes below. Hey, welcome back to the Average Joe Finances podcast. I'm your host, Mike Cavagioni,
And I'm your co-host, Tanya Schultz.
and today's special guest is Freddie Rappina. And Freddie, we were talking before we hit record, and I think that's one of the things that kind of messed me up a bit is because now I got Star Wars on the brain, but you stumped me with the Star Wars question, which was awesome. But great way to break the ice. So I'm super excited to talk to you today about things other than Star Wars. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, really important things like wealth, baseball, and Star Wars. Things I those are pretty much things I know about.
Life
Yeah,
lessons,
yeah.
things you should know in life.
Yeah. Don't ask me about a whole lot of other things though. They probably won't know them.
Absolutely. Awesome. Hey, so Freddie, super excited to have you on. Let's go ahead and kick things off the same way we start every podcast episode. And we
Mhm.
want to learn a little bit more about you. So if you could share a little bit about yourself, tell us your story. Who is Freddie Rapina?
First off, I'm a dad and a husband. And dad of two kids, but I'm a wealth advisor and started a firm back in 2014. I'm a retired police officer out of Fairfax County, Virginia. I'm originally from Long Island, New York. That's where I was born and raised.
Woo-hoo.
And now I
Me
live in
too.
Tampa, Florida, progressively moving south.
There you
But
go.
yeah, I'm super passionate about helping people build wealth and super passionate about finance and just getting information out there that people don't normally hear and don't normally think about. And it's just really important for people to know how to build true wealth. It doesn't mean you have to be a billionaire either. It means to actually advance your lifestyle. I'm very passionate about it.
100%.
Nice.
I love that.
So
I
real quick, Tanya, because I have to
Yeah.
jump in on this because what part of Long Island are you from?
I'm from North Babylon.
Okay, I'm from Central Islip. That's
Oh,
why,
yeah?
like you're saying, yeah. So I was like, oh yeah, I grew up in
Yeah.
New
I
York,
went
and
to St.
spent
Anthony's High School.
15 years in Virginia. When I was in the Navy, I was in Virginia for 15 years, and then I also moved further south because Hawaii is the most southern state, just
It is.
pretty far west as well.
Well-
Yeah, we're the closest to the equator. I think the Big Island is closer than the Florida Keys. Pretty sure.
Here's another stump question for you. Since I got you on the last one.
Here we go.
So Hawaii is I'll just give you the answer. Hawaii is the most southern state,
See, there we go.
but the most northern state, eastern state, and western state is Alaska. Because of where the international date line goes through, it's actually on both sides of the elementary school map, so it makes it both east and west.
There
Whoa.
we go.
That
That's
is
pretty
crazy.
awesome. All right.
I love-
I know that was supposed to be a stumping question, but you gave us the answer, so I appreciate that because otherwise
Yeah.
you would have had me.
But you can use it
thinking
now to
for a
stump other
while.
people.
Yeah, there you go. There you
Because
go.
people will say like Maine and Florida, something like that. No, those are the right answer.
Awesome. I'll let Tanya get to what she was going to say. I just wanted to jump in because I was a fellow Long Islander. I got to
Yeah.
point that out.
I would love to know, you're a police officer. How does that relate, or how does that help you now being a wealth advisor? What are are there similar skills that you've applied? Because that's like a pretty intense, and I don't even know because I haven't been on that field, but I can imagine you deal with just like the craziest stuff from day to day. Like how has that helped you?
One thing that's helping me, that's a good question, Tanya. One thing that's helping me very much is having an evidence-based mindset in both careers. Okay. Because I definitely feel like the middle class is like sold this idea, right? And the financial companies are all just pitching the same stuff to the middle class over and over. And not that it's wrong. It's just, it may not be the whole story. And having an evidence-based mindset of thinking, okay, this is what they're saying, but is this what they're doing? And are those things different? And looking at it with that, I'm not so much interested in what these companies are pitching their products or services or whatever. I'm more interested in what are they doing how are they structuring themselves? How are they building wealth for their company? And is it the same way they're telling their financial advisors in their firm or whatever to tell their clients? And a lot of times there is a bit of a do as I say, not as I do element in the financial world. And I've broken it down to an analogy of checkers and chess, right? And I say that the middle class is playing checkers. But I don't say there's anything wrong with checkers. You can have a great life. You can be happy. You can retire. That stuff can happen playing checkers. What's very unlikely is you building wealth, especially generational wealth, playing checkers, right? And the middle class is just force fed checkers, right? But the companies that are saying you should play checkers are turning around and playing chess.
Hmm.
The wealthy are playing chess. They're playing a totally different game,
For
right?
sure.
So so there is a big disconnect there with the law enforcement background and just, of course, being a people person, being known to talk to people, having clients and
Yeah.
talking about uncomfortable things. Of course, that helps a lot. But I would say that's the biggest when you're going through investigations on people lying to you all the time. So
God.
you
Sure.
pick up on you learn some things.
Is that something on both sides? So obviously, as a police officer, you saw that right all the time. Is
Mhm.
that something you see now as you have clients coming to you? They're not 100% honest about what they have going on. Is that something that you see, or is
No, it's more about the company. So
okay.
it's about what they're doing.
Makes
And
sense.
I wouldn't call it lying. That's not fair because that implies something's wrong. They're just
Stretching the truth.
feeding. They're overfeeding check, right?
Mm.
And it's almost like a paternal element to this whole thing where these companies are telling you or like keeping you down for your own benefit, which is the definition of paternalism. It's like they think they're doing the right thing, keeping you in the dark, keeping you in la land and all that, because it would be too hard, it'd be too difficult to learn how to play chess, and you could mess up
Sure.
and lose everything. So again, it's not coming from a point of evil, right? It's coming from a point of we're going to teach checkers and we're going to play chess, and it's just all of it, or at least a lot of it, right? So one of the things I talk about a lot is compound interest. All right. So compound interest, in my opinion, is one of the most oversold concepts to the middle class. Not to say that compound interest is wrong. Compound interest is math. It is absolutely irrefutable. The problem with compound interest and the problem with it being sold too hard to the middle class is that human beings simply don't live long enough for compound interest to really do what people would like it to do. All right. Now, if you lived 900 years like Yoda did behind you, compound interest would be great. All right. By your 400th year, you're doing, the numbers are really up there. But here in this lifetime, in this galaxy, where you only have so many sets of 10, compound interest does not work the way people would want it to, because if you're getting a 7% rate of interest and your money should double every 10 years, right? That's the math, right? But the problem is, how many sets of 10 do you have?
Yeah.
Right. So how many times is this really going to double? How old are you going to be till you get to the number that you are looking for? Are you even going to be on this earth when that happens? And even if are you physically able now to do the things you want to do with the money? So that is, again, oversold to the middle class. Not to say that it's wrong, though. It's just people don't usually start with enough money in relationship to the cost of goods and services for that relationship to work. All right.
Sure.
If you started out with $10 million, yeah, that's great, because you're going to do fine on $10 million, right? And that'll double into 20 million. You can use some of the interest to fund your life. 20 becomes 40 million. 40 gets up there fast, right? But when you're starting with $2,000,
Yeah.
$2,000 in 10 years becomes $4,000, 4,000. It's just the relationship never gets to that point, especially with inflation, for the amount of money to be able to do what you want to do, and that is presumably to be able to afford a great lifestyle.
So what are the tips and strategies that you tell people, since that is very common to hear about compound interest and investing in that way? What are the strategies? What are some easy ways that people can play a simpler game of chess?
I certainly wouldn't call them easy, but
simpler.
yes. So in simple in concepts is using leverage, right? Using borrowed money correctly. I'm one of the few wealth advisors I know that will stand in front of a room of 200 people and say, I'm Freddie Rappina. I'm a wealth advisor and I love debt. Love debt. All right. Because debt can help you become very wealthy if you use it right. Okay. Debt is like fire, right? If you use it, it'll cook your food, it will heat your house. Not Mike's house, he's in Hawaii. But if you use it incorrectly, it'll burn everything down, correct? So we know that. So fire isn't bad or good. It's the person using it. And debt, in my opinion, is the big differentiator between a checkers player and a chess player. A checkers player wants to stay the hell out of debt, be debt free, have compound interest working for you, fully fund retirement accounts, spend 30 years. Hopefully that money's going to grow to a big number where you can start taking income from. That's a checkers game, and play it. You can be successful at checkers.
Freddie, I just want to jump in on that because like a lot of
Mhm.
people, they're comfortable with that checkers game and it works for them. There are other people that want to play chess. So
Mhm.
I can give you an example. I feel like I'm more of a chess player, right? Because I
Mhm.
leverage my debt as well. So I have a HELOC on my home that I use to do velocity banking. I've used it to buy more real estate. I use it basically to pay all my bills and everything. And then I just take all my income that I get and I just pay the HELOC down. Right.
Mhm.
And I essentially turn my home into my, checking account / giant credit card. Right. And I do it that way, but I'm also able to pick up assets along the way while doing it. So I'm building up other things that will compound over time, right? So I think the thing here is that compound interest is great, but are you going to have enough of it, right? So that 7% to get you to double every 10 years is only, so much, where if you're getting up to the point where you're buying other cash flowing assets and other things that are bringing in like a better return, like some of my real estate investments bring me in 20+% returns. Now I'm looking at doubling my money over what I think for 20%. So it can be over a 3-year period, right? Because
Oh,
24, yeah.
Yeah. So you're talking about two different interest compounding, right?
But
So
leveraging the debt
accounts,
to do that.
right? Because you're using the debt, right? So again, that's a chess move. And I don't say checkers is wrong. I just say, hey, if you're going to play checkers, you have the right
I'm just saying,
expectations of checkers,
on this podcast, it could be
right?
taken as a hot take.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
So
No,
that's why I just wanted to point that out. That
I'm a chess player, right?
There are some people that are very comfortable with that,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying that's wrong. But what you're saying is if you want to accelerate it, there are methods to go about accelerating it to maybe switch from the checkers game to a chess game, right?
That's right. And those are the clients we love working with, the ones that have been, that are ready to switch. And if you're playing checkers, just don't go screaming at the moon, why do the rich keep getting richer? Because you're not playing the same game at all.
Sure.
So using debt to buy cash flowing assets, like especially real estate, big real estate guy over here, and or businesses to create cash flow, your wealth is going to build because it's building on two different things now, not one. So let's say you had $1 million, right? And you were going to invest it in the market, right? In a regular account. And that account's going to accrue interest. Let's say you got a pretty decent rate of return, right? Say you're getting like 7-8% or something like that, something good. And that's all you did with that $1 million. But let's say you had the same $1 million, but you took $200,000 of it. So you have $800,000 in the investment account. Now you took out an $800,000 mortgage. You have a $200,000 down payment. Now you have $1 million property over here, right? Let's say this $800,000 still getting that good 7% interest rate, 8 whatever, right? But let's say the property is appreciating at a 4% rate, but it's appreciating on $1 million, not $200,000. Appreciating on $1 million because you borrowed $800,000. So if you're doing that over the course of 10 years, you will likely have double the amount of money or close, right? There's no guarantees. If you do it correctly, should have a lot more wealth using the two things instead of just the money sitting in the market. And I'm the guy who makes more money having more assets under management. So I would make more money you having just $1 million under our management instead of taking that $200,000 and moving it over here and buying the real estate. But I want people to do that, right? I want people to use a little bit of leverage that they're comfortable with, right? Not the whole thing. Because if you have this, in this hypothetical, you have that $1 million property with an $800,000 mortgage on it, and let's say you have a hiccup, something goes wrong. You have $800,000 to help you fix the problem, right? But if you just took the whole $1 million and you stuck it in real estate and something bad happens, A, you're not using the debt properly. And 2, when something goes wrong, you're not going to have the money to be able to handle it, right? And especially if this $1 million property is cash flowing, because cash flow is what supports lifestyles. It's not investments.
So I'm curious. I want to hear what Tanya thinks about this, because when the way you describe that, like for me, the way my brain thinks is I would take that full $1 million and I'd buy multiple properties, right? And if something went wrong, I would take a HELOC out on one of those properties and fix the other issue and just continue leveraging that debt. But that's where my head is. So I'm curious, Tanya, like what your thoughts are on, like, if you just put the 200,000 over and then you had the 800,000, like what would you do with that? Because Tanya and I think a little bit differently, which is why she's the co-host. So I need to know.
And I think, for me, I've been conditioned on having debt. And for me personally, understanding what you're leveraging, like what you're saying, like you need enough information and understanding like the full picture before putting that investment or taking that risk. It's about that risk assessment and what people are comfortable with. For me, there'd be a lot of like different evaluations I would need to do in order to make that decision. But obviously the real estate market I'm in, like for me too, I would almost think about wanting to buy more properties that are potentially going to cash flow. But right now where it struggles, I'm in Northern California. Like a minute, like that, even getting in to sometimes get the debt on something like that can be difficult for people. So I'd like your take on, do you recommend people get their initial property, like their home first and then go into this? Or like, how do you recommend people set this up? Because I feel like people struggle with going into that or some sort of investment first before they even have their own home.
Yeah. So I think that's a really good, like, personal decision, right? It's a personal decision. That's not going to be a one size fits all there. But in my opinion, you're either going to do this after you've established yourself, you got a good foothold, you're playing a good checkers, and and you have your house, maybe you're using a HELOC like Mike is, whatever. Or you're going to do the strategy where you're going to rent where you live and use the income from whatever you're doing to generate income, and you're going to buy the investment properties.
What would Freddie
that way.
do now? What would Freddie do?
Oh, I still like owning my own house.
Oh,
I
no.
like owning my own house. The whole rent where you live, and I can't say it's wrong because it's working for a lot of people. I'm just saying it's just a little bit out of my risk tolerance, right? Where I want to own a home and I want that to build as well. But I can't say the other way is wrong, right?
Well, for sure.
But you have to be comfortable with the leverage. Some people are comfortable with way more leverage than us. Some people are just crazy with leverage.
Yeah.
Where they are building a house of cards and they don't even realize it and they think they're so awesome, especially 3 years ago when it was just so easy to buy a property, buy 10 properties, buy whatever the hell you want, interest rates of whatever percent. And then all of a sudden you get punched in the face once. Mike Tyson says everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And then next thing you know, the whole house of cards are going down. People have got to be comfortable with, they got to be in a position of strength. And I feel like that's one of my jobs as the advisor. It's like, whoa, wait, let's go over some scenarios here. What can happen if this happens? What happens if that happens? If you're still comfortable, okay. But as long as you know that this can go wrong, and you won't have the resources. You might be able to put a Band-Aid on a broken leg, but you won't be able to fix the broken leg to really get yourself out of this jam without having a major loss. So in my analogy, we're using $200,000, you have $800,000. You're in a really good position of strength. And as you get better and you make a mistake or two and you learn from it, you make a 5% mistake on a small property, you'll be able to handle that, right? It'll suck, but you'll be able to handle it. Make a 5% mistake on a very large real estate investment. Now we're talking big dollars and big problems.
So it's funny because I feel like this is like the conversation I have with my financial advisor too, when we talk about my stuff. So yeah, that's been like my biggest challenge, is always making sure I don't over leverage, right? That's why my focus this year has been like, I've been focusing now on some debt pay down and building my liquidity, right? Because I don't have a crystal ball or anything, but I have a feeling that in 2025, like no matter who's elected, I feel like there's going to be something's going to happen in the real estate market. So I have a feeling that we're going to see you have a lot of folks that are on these private money debt and short-term debt that they have that's going to balloon out. And that already started happening this year. And with interest rates the way they are, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity out there. Similar, but not as big as 2008, 2009 timeframe, but similar to that, where there'll be opportunity to pick up some good deals. So my focus now has been building liquidity to prepare for that, to prepare for when the opportunity arises. And again, like I said, I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not making any predictions here. I'm just paying attention to the market, because I'm also a real estate agent. So that's one of the things I do, is I pay attention to the market and what's going on. I feel where you're going with that, Freddie, and to go along with what Tanya was saying with her piece too, is like having that preparedness, right? And part of that is not over leveraging yourself. Now, I said I would take that full million and I'd go buy 5 of those $1 million properties, putting 200,000 down on each, right? But at the same time, I'm looking at that as I still have $1 million in equity sitting out there, right? Because that 200 grand that I put down each, even if every one of those properties dropped 10%, I still have $500,000 in equity, right? If that makes sense. So that's the way in my head I'm looking at it. Like I still have an exit that, and that's why putting that 20% down puts you in a much safer place. I'm usually a little bit more risky. If there's opportunities to put less down, I put less down, right? But given a situation like that, where you're putting 20% down on every single one of those properties, and I feel like I would space it out, different markets as well, not all in Northern
Right.
California or in Hawaii.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would space it out. Obviously, I would probably invest out of state and probably dump that into not $1 million properties, but a bunch of like properties that are 250, 300,000, just pick up a bunch of those. Or I'd invest in multifamily real estate, but that's just me. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it comes down to
thing
risk
is
tolerance
for
and
me, it's
also
the diversity part of that risk tolerance.
and knowing what you're doing, right? So I certainly wouldn't recommend a rookie do most
Sure.
of that. But doesn't mean a rookie can't invest in real estate either.
Right,
And it's
right.
also the whole timing thing. I look at it like, when is a good time to get married? When is a good time to have kids? When is a good time to start a business? And the answer to all three of those questions, in my opinion, is there isn't one. You just do it when you can, and you battle through it, right? I would say you're there may be more opportunities in the future, possibly, right? But that doesn't mean there's not opportunity now either. But in my opinion, it's just harder to find a deal right now than it was 3 years ago.
But they're out there.
So they're out,
also-
but they're out there. But it takes a little more work.
put
There's
in the
no
work,
more.
the legwork.
Yeah, there's no more like just throwing a dart at Zillow and you're going to find an investment property that's going to cash flow. Now, with the cost of financing being higher and the prices not coming down the way, I shouldn't say should work, but just like traditionally, right? If interest rates are high, prices are coming down, vice versa. But this time they're both high.
Yeah, but see
so
Freddie, that was a false expectation that a lot of people were hoping for. But the fact of the matter is there's a third factor in there, and that third factor is inventory, right? The inventory has
inventory's
not
high.
increased because
not
we had
high.
issues with building, with the lumber
Mhm.
shortage, all that stuff. So it put a lack of inventory out there.
Yeah.
So there's multiple factors people need to look at when it comes to why real estate's priced the way it is and not really coming down that much with the higher interest rates.
In my opinion, there are deals. It may not be in Hawaii. It may not be in Northern California. Right.
Definitely.
So people that are looking to invest, their backyard may be the last place they want to look
Mm.
and not their first. I think that's something that I talk about a lot with clients that are looking to get into real estate investing because of the cap rate. So if where you live, if you have money to do these kinds of things, right, it probably has a low cap rate because you're living in a very nice area, and that area has low risk, but probably doesn't have very good cap rates. Probably not a lot of cash flow in your backyard,
Yeah.
right? Looking in other areas, other places that you may not think about, where the prices are lower and the rents are higher, may be a better place to start looking. But you have to be comfortable with hiring property managers, not seeing I don't even see the properties when I buy them, which is like buy properties on your phone at the pool. It's sometimes I ask myself, who the heck am I? But it's you got to trust your team, right? You got to have the boots on the ground in those locations who know you're going to use them tomorrow and the next day, and you got to be confident in their abilities to call you and say, no, this is good, or no, this is not, right? And then I just really just trying to make a sale or whatever. And the property manager is huge, in my opinion. If you find an area with a good property manager and that property manager is scoring, stay there. Even if you pay a little bit more for properties than you would other places, if you get a property manager, that it makes all the difference in the world.
For sure. Yeah, I know we're getting close on time. We're already going long here, but I love this conversation. I did have one more before we get into the final round, which is, so if somebody is interested in figuring out, okay, how do I do this? How do I get started? Is that looking for a financial advisor like you to get that information from, or where do they start?
Yeah, I would say, first they got to figure out if they're a chess. In my opinion, they first have to figure out if they're checkers or a chess player. That, in my opinion, that's the first thing you need to do. And because not all wealth advisors or financial advisors, whatever you want to call them, we're not all the same. I'm an excellent chess when it comes to checkers. I'll still help people, but their checkers advisor my opinion, dime in a dozen, because that's what the companies are they're preaching checkers to their advisors, who then tell their clients, right? So once you figure out if you're a checkers player or a chess player, then we got to talk about risk, talk about strategies. Are you going to do it through businesses? Are you going to do it through real estate? It's that's in my opinion, that's the biggest thing, is understanding if you're a chess or a checkers player. Some people think they are, and then when you start telling them some strategies, it's no, I'm not going to roll that. No, I'm not going to roll that one either. No, I'm not. It's okay. You're a checkers player, and
How would somebody, like, if they were in the checkers game and they
Mhm.
wanted to start playing chess, like, how would you gear that kind of conversation for somebody that wants to make that transition into leveraging debt now and playing a game of chess versus checkers?
so the debt is the first question. Like that, they have to be comfortable with it, right? And they have to have the right expectations. And if they're not, that's okay. I want them to play a better checkers game. But if they gets comfortable with chess and they want leverage, they want to start using leverage. Yeah, that is the biggest conversation. And then it's how much, and then it gets into the conversations of what kind of properties or what kind of businesses do they want to invest in, and what's their realistic expectations of cash flow. Because in my opinion, investments don't make you rich. Income makes you rich. Income is what I used to pay for my daughter's cheerleading competitions and my son's travel baseball stuff. So it's not investments, it's income. You have to have the income. And if you're playing checkers, you're trying to build future income, but you have to have the right expectations of what that amount of money is going to be able to generate.
Yeah.
Fair
So I
enough.
love that. There's so many different ways to do it, like you said. Yeah, let's get into the final round. And some of these you might have already started to answer, but we'll get into them a little bit more. The biggest mistake you've ever made when it comes to your finances or business life?
Say it's a mistake, but at one point I was a hardcore checkers player. And I want those years back. Still wouldn't call it a mistake. It's just I was working overtime for the police department, putting in so many hours, but not at the expense of my time
Hmm.
doing the things that I like to do. And I wish I would have switched to chess earlier. But I would say mistake is hard, right? Because the mistakes were probably a good reason why I am where I am now.
Yeah, they're a great educational tool, right?
Mhm.
When you make those mistakes.
And I
then
can
you go,
empathize with the client, right? It's been there.
yeah,
It's not like I
yeah,
was born into
exactly.
chess.
Yeah,
So
exactly. You've got that same kind of story. So, Freddie, this next question kind of ties into that last one, and
Mhm.
it's what is something that you've learned that you wish you knew when you first started out?
I wish I would have learned taxes earlier. Taxes are, in my opinion, the greatest tool to building wealth. It's like when people ask me, hey, what book should I read on investments? Don't read a book on investments. Read a book on taxes first. Because as soon as once I got around chess players and I started learning like actually how to become wealthy, right? And this is before I had the firm. Once I learned taxes and understood that the tax code is there for you to not pay as much taxes, as almost like a guide, it's like a tour guide. This is how you don't pay taxes. You do all this stuff that's in this very poorly written tax code, but they're there. So once you learn taxes, you shift your mindset from the government's there to take, and you switch it and no, this is how the government. If you do what the government wants you to do, you don't pay a lot in taxes, if anything. But if you don't do what the government wants you to do, the government says, okay, it's a free country and you can do what your free will with your money, but we are going to tax you heavily because we need that money to do the things that we need to do, especially for defense and infrastructure and everything else. Yeah, I wish I would have known that a lot sooner.
No, that's a really good tip. I haven't heard really anyone talk about that as much, and I think that's super important. And what side question, is that why you moved to Florida?
No, it's not. But it's even of course, Florida has no state income taxes, but the homeowners insurance is very high here. Things tend to
Yeah,
balance
evens
out a little
itself
bit.
out. Yeah.
There's no free lunch, but I do, of course, it's
Yeah.
especially now with Zoom and everything else where I can help clients in all four corners of the country, Florida's a good place to be for us. Plus, my kids love it.
Yeah, I love that. You sort of answered this earlier too, but do you have any tips or tricks that you would recommend to someone that is just getting started investing and or starting to play chess today?
Yeah, build a team, get a good. You have to have a good wealth advisor. You have to have a good tax person. If you're going to play chess, you need a good realtor, a good lender, good property manager. Don't think you're do it all yourself, and don't think you can learn it all. It's like next to impossible to be good at all these different elements. So building a team and work with somebody that you're comfortable with and is actually doing similar things, maybe not the same thing, but similar things that you're doing. Like, if you're a chess player and you walk into speaking to a financial advisor and you ask them how many doors they own, if they say one or none, just get up and leave. That is not a good advisor for you because you want to play chess. That advisor could be awesome at advising checkers. But yeah, it's just you want to work with somebody who has at least a similar mindset. Maybe different opinions is fine. Maybe different strategies, that's fine. But yeah, on the same path.
No, that's a great point. You have to make sure you pick the right fit. Everybody has a different profile, right? With how
Mhm.
they want to do things. So you got to fit the person that's going to match yours. Okay, so Freddie, the final question in the final round, and I will preface this with besides your own, do you have a favorite business, investing, or real estate related book or podcast or both?
I would say books, besides my own. Of course, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich. The tax one, Tom Wheelwright's tax book is actually really good. You can only make tax so fun. It's not a really fun subject matter, but he does a pretty good job of making it just not completely you falling asleep in 5 minutes. Those books, I would say those. And podcasts, again, I hate to sidestep the question, but you want to listen to people that are on the same path as you. If you're a checkers player and you're listening to chess players, it's probably not going to be good for you, or you're going to mess it up thinking you know what you're doing because you're listening to some podcast person. And also, if you're a chess person, stop listening to the checkers podcast people or TV personalities, whoever they are, right? But you can also, again, think about it, especially the checkers podcasters, checkers or entertainers or whatever they call themselves, pundits, I guess is a good word. I want people to think about, did these people become wealthy playing checkers, the strategies that they're talking about, or did they make money from teaching checkers and then playing chess?
Mm,
Yeah, that's a really good point.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So to close, where can people find more information about you? What's your website, social media, and especially let us know where we can find your book?
Oh, our firm is called Opta Financial. That's OPTA Financial. Anybody can go there and on the top right hand corner, click the Calendly link. I love Calendly. Calendly basically runs my life now. To set up a complimentary consultation. You also pick up the phone. I know it's weird, but my advisors were all from the 90s, so we do actually pick up the phone. And of course, the book is on Amazon. It's called Playing the Wealth Game. Looks like this. And that's a good start. By the end of the book, it's a self-discovery book where people should know whether they're a checkers player or a chess player and if they want to stay there or do they want to change. So I think that's the best way we could have written the book. So it's not like right and wrong. That's not fair to anything. But
Okay.
just stop listening to what they're telling you. Just please, or at least take it into question, right? Take it into question. Yeah, you have checker financial advisors trying to talk people out of real estate. Meanwhile, they're selling the funds. The funds are going to these mutual funds, ETFs, whatever, are going to a company who's buying real estate,
Yeah.
right? Insurance companies, they're selling insurance policies or whatever, and they're buying real estate with the revenue, but they're telling the clients, "Oh, don't buy real estate." You have to think about it. One of my things, I'm like, and no company has given me a straight answer on this, is how in the heck can life insurance companies, especially the big three, have their best years in 2020, 2021, and 2022? What they insure is life. Life is dying. They should have bad years, not their best years ever. They've been around
Yeah.
like 100. So just things like that. It's not all just drinking the Kool-Aid.
All right. I love it. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. Don't care how tasty it looks. But all right. Awesome. Freddie, thank you so much. We're gonna have your links and everything in the show notes to make it easy for people to find you, to find your book and all that good stuff. For those that are listening right now, you guys know the drill. If you're driving, don't try to open any links right now. Just wait till you get to wherever you're going. But Freddie, sincerely, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join Tanya and I on the podcast today. Great conversation. I never really looked at it from a checkers and chess perspective, but that makes a lot of sense. And I love to talk in analogies. You were like checking all the stuff down my checklist, and we started with Star Wars. So like, you're pretty good in my book, man.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, I also want to thank every single one of you that are tuning in right now and listening to the Average Joe Finances podcast. We greatly appreciate it. You joined Tanya and Freddie and I today, and we're just really excited to get this episode out to you.
Yeah, we're super excited. And you guys definitely go leave us a 5-star review and let us know what you liked about this episode. And with Freddie, what you learned today. Something great.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's a wrap. So aloha from Hawaii.
And goodbye from Lake Tahoe.
Have a great rest of your day. Thank you for making it to the end of this episode. Greatly appreciate you being here with me today on the Average Joe Finances podcast. If you haven't done so yet, make this the episode that you go leave us a 5-star rating or subscribe to our YouTube channel. The Average Joe Finances podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Have an outstanding day.